Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 21st of August, 2023. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So I'm sure you've all seen all over Twitter on the weekend about this thing called Friend.tech. Now, what is Friend.tech? I'm going to go over what it is, and I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about this today because it has caused a divide in the community. So Friend.tech is basically this social platform where essentially you can buy and sell shares of your favorite kind of whoever. That can be like a popular influencer, or it can be really anyone with an account. And you buy and sell their shares, and it's based on a bonding curve, and then you get access to this chat room. Now, the chat room is a bit weird in that it's not actually a group chat, so everyone's in the same chat room, but only the creator of the chat room, the person that everyone's buying and selling the shares of, can see everyone else's messages and they can reply to them, but then everyone in the group chat can see those messages as well. So it's like a group chat, but not. It's a weird way of doing things, but you know. What people have been doing is they've been copy and pasting in questions that they get asked and basically answering them, and then everyone can see the answers. So some people are using it as like an alpha paid group thing. Other people are just using it as something kind of fun to play around with, and that's exactly what I've been using it for. Now, why are people excited about this? Hasn't this been done before? It has. It's been done before. It's been done as in the form of BitClout. I think in the early days of like Steam, something was like this was tried. Not Steam, the gaming platform. Steam, the decentralized social media platform. And there's been experiments here and there of this. Okay, so why is this suddenly the thing that's, I guess, taking off? Well, I mean, I don't think anyone can really pinpoint the exact reason why it's taking off and why it's kind of captured the mindshare. But to me, there are a few different reasons as to why this is happening. And I kind of wrote these reasons down on Farcaster, actually. I said, I think it's groundbreaking for a few different reasons. Number one is that it shows people that crypto apps can bypass the app store, because Friend.tech is not actually an app on any of the app stores. It's basically just a web app, and you can add it to your home screen, and then you can basically use it as essentially as an app. It's got notifications and everything like that, but it's not officially on the app store. So that alone is a pretty big deal, I think, because even though it's been possible for quite a while, I don't think many people were aware of it, and I don't think many people were aware of how smooth it could potentially work. So that's the reason number one. The wallet UX is generally pretty smooth. Once you've bridged in, and you just sign, you just sign transactions. Basically, there's no need to kind of confirm anything. You just click sign, you just confirm it, and there's no need to essentially have another pop up for that, like what you see in MetaMask and anything like that. So it's generally smoother than what we're used to. It's not obviously the smoothest thing ever. It's still clunky, but it's smoother than what we're used to, which I thought was pretty cool generally. Third thing is that it gets people on chain, right? And Friend.tech, for those of you who don't know, is built on Base. So Base is obviously a layer 2 on Ethereum. So it's getting people on chain, and not only on chain, but it's getting them to use layer 2s, which is obviously the thing that we all want to see happening. We want more and more people using layer 2s. And I'm seeing people use these things that haven't gone on chain before at all. And you guys know, I've been saying this for a long time now, that I didn't consider people who just buy coins on centralized exchanges and keep them there to be crypto users. I consider crypto users to be people who do stuff on chain, and that's exactly what we're seeing now. So that's another thing that's getting me really, really excited. And lastly, and this is the thing that's kind of causing a divide in the community, it's a very speculative app, right? Like obviously, if you buy and sell shares, you could buy it low and sell it high sort of thing, just like any token. But as I said, it is on a bonding curve, so it's different in that there is kind of a known curve that the price can go up, and there's kind of, I guess, a ceiling that gets reached eventually, where essentially if someone's share is worth 3 ETH, then is someone going to spend 3 ETH to buy that share to push the price up again? And there's kind of like a natural ceiling there, because it's actually a pretty aggressive curve as well. I think Kobe was like the number one person on there. He had 170 followers or something, and his price was like 3 ETH. So it wasn't really much, right? 170 shareholders, I should say. But while it is still a very speculative app, I think the app itself feels distinctly different to something like Uniswap or a DeFi app that's speculative, right? It's definitely distinctly different, even though it's still very speculative. So that's another thing that gets me excited. And then I put out a tweet about this. I didn't really understand why people are so mad about Friend.tech. I said, is it speculative? Yes, of course. Is it sustainable? Probably not, right? Because like with most things in crypto, it's not very sustainable. Does it bring lots of new people on chain? Yes. So I think it's a net positive for the Ethereum ecosystem, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. So I think the term speculative or speculation is what causes a lot of the drama, because It seems that when a lot of people hear the term speculation, they immediately think of gambling. Now, of course, a lot of what's happening on Friend.tech looks like gambling, right? I'm not going to deny that at all. And there's a lot of gambling that goes on within crypto already. And I've said before that I think that pure gambling is probably a net negative for society. That's my personal view. But on the flip side of things, I think that there is still good to be extracted out of gambling. Like, for example, with my Friend.tech shares, all the trading profits that I'm making from that, because every time someone buys or sells a share, there's kind of a portion of it that goes to the actual creator, I'm actually donating all of that to the Protocol Guild, and I've already donated 1.5 ETH to the Protocol Guild, and I plan to donate everything else to them as well. So that's falling into that thing of turning degens into regens, and that's where I think that there can be some positive externalities of kind of pure gambling, but for the most part, I do think it's a net negative, because for the most part, that doesn't happen. Obviously, me donating 1.5 ETH, if there's hundreds of ETH being made, most of that is not being donated. That's just not the way that this is working. Obviously, people want to make money, and that's totally fine. But yeah, I think generally people have kind of clutched their pearls about this a bit and said, "Oh my God, it's so speculative, it's gambling. We shouldn't be pushing people into this." I mean, I'm not pushing anyone into it. I'm just saying, hey, this is fun, right? It's obviously speculative. I'm also not profiting off of this or anything like that, because I don't want to profit off of gambling or anything like that, or the direct gambling that's happening here. And I don't want to use my name as a way to profit either, right? So there's all that falls into it. But at the same time, gets people on chain, gets people using a new wallet UX, gets people using, or gets people basically aware of the fact that you can do things outside of the App Store within crypto, and basically just pushes the space forward. So that's my general view on things. But I mean, I've been in a few discussions, let's call it, or debates today on Twitter around this. You've probably seen some of them, where I'm butting heads with a bunch of people about this, because I think in crypto there really exists two or maybe three broad categories of people, right? There are the idealists, like the hardcore idealists, the ones who don't like anything got to do with speculation, because speculation, as I said, isn't just gambling. It's a lot more than gambling. The term speculation can mean really anything. You can speculate on anything. It doesn't have to be just gambling. So there are those hardcore idealists, and I understand their point of view because I used to be like that, but I feel like the reality doesn't cater to the hardcore idealists, especially the reality in crypto. And I think that speculation is the lifeblood of crypto, whether people like it or not. But it's fine. You can be an idealist. I have nothing wrong with that. But then you also have like the hardcore speculators, right? The hardcore gamblers, the profit maxis, as we call them. And I'm not aligned with that group totally either. I get why they speculate, and I speculate as well. But I'm not a profit maxi, right? Like, I don't think that speculation and gambling should be done at all costs. I don't think you should extract as much money from everything as you can at all costs, and that's all that matters. Of course, I don't think that. You guys know that, right? But then there's like that third category, which is probably where I fit, which is like fitting in the middle, right? You understand that speculation is the lifeblood of the industry. You understand that most of the industry wouldn't have even been built without speculation. You understand that people want to gamble, and you're not going to be able to stop them gambling. You can make it illegal, but it's just going to happen anyway, right? But then you also have ideals, right? You have ideals about what you want this technology to be and how you want it to empower people. You have ideals, like for me, I'm a public goods funding maximalist, right? I love just donating to public goods, right? And turning degens into regens and all that. So you can be both, right? It doesn't have to be a binary decision here, but there is that spectrum that people fall on. So I try to stay in the middle as much as I can, but I understand why people fall on different sides of it, because I can understand why someone might, just view the speculation as all gambling, even though I don't view it like that, and they may view it like that, and they might say, well, I hate gambling, and the speculation just looks like that. It's just ugly to me. I don't want to be involved with that. I mean, that's fine. You don't have to be involved with that. But denying the reality that the majority of stuff that has been built in crypto was built off the back of speculation is where I kind of draw the line, because you can't deny reality, right? The reality is always going to hit you in the face. It's always going to be real. I mean, that's the whole definition of it, right? And I don't think that it's good to just bury your head and be naive about it. Accept it. You can hate it, but just accept it and move on and deal with it. In saying all of that, as I said, Friend.tech, super speculative. Please do not buy or sell shares or try to trade any of this stuff without actually knowing what you're doing. As per usual with any kind of investment that you make within the ecosystem, or any kind of thing that you buy and sell, there is risks of losing your money, right? So it's the same rule that applies to really anything out there. But if you do want to just play around with it and see what the hype is about, you can create an account for yourself. You can just bridge in a little bit of funds into the into base. You can start playing around with things. You don't have to buy a share of anyone, but you can, right? You can buy a share of someone if you can afford it. If you understand that you may lose all of that money, right? Because maybe everyone else sells and your share isn't worth very much anymore. As long as you understand all of that, I see no issue with people playing around with this sort of stuff. I see no issue with people kind of speculating on this sort of stuff. I think it's healthy, and I think it's a net positive for the Ethereum ecosystem. Now, just before I finish up on the Friend.tech chat, there was also this tweet from Nicholas, who basically put it really nicely and succinctly, everything I just said, where he said, Friend.tech is not a revolution in social tokens. It's the first wow moment about a brand new stack. So this is what I was saying before. Progressive web app, basically using an app outside of the App Store, Web 2 login, because you can log in with an email or phone number, embedded self-custodial wallet, so the wallet UX is much smoother than what we're used to, layer 2 transaction fees, and of course notifications as well, which is obviously huge for something like a chat app. So yeah, it really is at least that's the most interesting thing to me, is the brand new stack for sure, and also getting people on chain, because I love getting people on chain no matter what chain it is, and it just happened to be an L2, which is obviously my pick, right? So I'm super excited about all of that there. But yeah, hopefully that gives you kind of the rundown of the Friend.tech stuff, both the good parts and the bad parts and everything in between. But moving on from that for now. All right, so you guys have heard, I think it was last week or the week before, me talk about the SEC greenlighting these kind of like ETH futures ETF products. Now, Scott Johnson here has a really great thread on Twitter about this that I highly recommend giving a read. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. The TLDR of this is basically that he thinks that the SEC has kind of conceded the point about ETH being a security, even though Gary Gensler has said before that he thinks everything except BTC is a security. Based on all the evidence that we have that's highlighted in Scott Johnson's thread here, he basically says that there's no reasonable way for the SEC and for Gary Gensler to go before a court and argue that ETH is a security. And I totally obviously agree with that. And a lot of this stuff is what I've been saying for a long time now. But you can give this thread a read as to exactly why that is the case. But I guess like if you don't want to read it, I can give you the TLDR. The TLDR is that because essentially all these products exist where ETH trades as a commodity, or ETH exists as a commodity, and for the SEC to turn around and basically say, well, no, ETH is a security, even though there are products that ETH has been trading at under for years, like the CME products, as a commodity, the SEC would have to basically argue why their stance has changed and why they're basically being hypocritical about things as well. So I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, go give Scott Johnson's thread a read. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, final reminder that you have 2 more days left to contribute to the Ethereum KZG Ceremony. The link is here. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But yeah, I think this is like the final call. I don't think they're going to be extending it anymore from here. So if we go to the actual website, we can obviously see at the top the total contributions is pretty much 140,000. So great to see that. But yeah, if you want to be a part of it and you still haven't contributed, you have 2 days and 15 hours, I guess, from time of recording here where I've recorded this, so definitely go check that out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, something that I noticed about the Ethereum validators was that Ethereum added 177,000 new validators since withdrawals went live in April, and this isn't counting the 60,000 validators that are currently in the queue. In all of 2022, there was around 218,000 validators added. When these 60,000 validators clear the queue, there will have been more validators added in 5 months of 2023 than the entirety of 2022. Who said withdrawals was bearish for ETH staking? Now, I know there were like 2 sides of this where people were saying withdrawals was bearish for ETH price and withdrawals is bearish for ETH staking. We obviously saw with price, I mean, it's remained rather neutral. It pumped up a bit, then came down, and it's rather neutral, right? But and it wasn't really bearish for the price from the price action that we've seen. So those people were wrong. And then the people who were saying that it was bearish for ETH staking, where a lot of ETH would be withdrawn from the beacon chain, was also wrong, based on the stats that I've just presented here, but also based on the fact that we saw who withdrew once withdrawals were enabled, and the majority of it was just Kraken, because they were forced to withdraw because the SEC shut down their retail staking product, right? But then again, I would wager that a lot of that ETH that got forced unstaked was probably just restaked with another service, right? Whether that be another centralized exchange, or maybe something like Rocket Pool, or maybe even solo staked. So those people were just so wrong, and it's just funny seeing how wrong they were, given that in less than half a year, we're going to have added more validators this year in like the peak crab, right? The peak crab bear market than we did last year. So yeah, just great to see. Great to see that the thesis of withdrawals not being bearish for ETH staking, not really being bearish for price, has played out pretty much to its fullest, I think, at this point. All right, so I have mentioned this a few times on the refuel, but it now is kind of like official. So the newest Ethereum testnet, Holesky, will be launching on September 15th. And apparently it's pronounced, I think, Holesky or something like that, or Holeshky. But I'm just calling it Holesky or Holesky because I'm English. English is my first language, and that's how I read it. But yeah, it's launching on September 15th, which is merge anniversary day. This will be a long-lived testnet and will be replacing the existing girly testnet. Now, this testnet, as you guys know, is launching with a lot of validators. I think 1.5 million validators in order to stress test the network with lots of validators online, and to give us more insight into everything around that. And also, I'm not sure on what it's going to look like for Denkun. I don't know if it's launching with Denkun or it's going to be hard forked to Denkun. I think what might happen is that it will launch without Denkun, and then Sepolia will be forked to Denkun, and then Holesky will be forked to Denkun, and then we'll get mainnet in like. It could even happen late October, guys. Like the speed at which things are happening right now I know I've been saying November, but I think it could happen in late October. But we'll see. October and November, I don't think it really matters. But yeah, keep an eye on that there. But yeah, it's going to be exciting times in not too long, less than a month from now, for the Holesky testnet. All right, so there was an interesting tweet here from Teshu, who talked about, I guess, the more speculative side of ETH. And maybe this is a little bit of a bullish rant that I'm about to go on, but they basically said, unpopular opinion, too many people expect next cycle to be similar to previous ones, but it won't. The big surprise will be heavy BTC underperformance. Too many people will position themselves for the halving with not enough inflows left to push BTC up meaningfully beyond all-time high. Nobody wants to buy sailors' heavy bags with meager upside and shaky narratives and miners constantly dumping. ETH, on the other hand, has a lack of sell-side liquidity, post-merge supply dynamics, which will then shine. Narratives will catch up quickly, story value plus global settlement layer plus deflationary plus yield bearing. The flipping is inevitable and it's happening in the next bull cycle. So this tweet is basically like confirming all of my biases and preaching to the choir, but I think it really makes sense. And this is something that I've also been preaching as well for a while, where I say that once demand comes back, ETH's lack of sell-side liquidity, all the merge dynamics, that supply reduction, the burning, the yield, all that sorts of stuff, that's all going to come together and really push ETH up in my mind. I think that not only against USD, but against BTC. I mean, ETH against BTC has performed so well this bear market. It's kind of funny how well it has performed even in like the downtrends, where essentially we saw the massive crash recently where ETH BTC went from like 0.063 to 0.06 and then bounced all the way up to 0.064 and seems to want to continue going up from here. So I've traditionally kind of said a lot of times in the past that I think that in the bear market and the crab market, it's really not worth watching ETH against USD, but it's very worth watching ETH against everything else, especially BTC. And the fact that it has still underperformed BTC by a little bit, I think 15-20% or something like that, since the top, it's in stark contrast to what it did last bear market, where it went down like 90% against the BTC, right? So if you had put in 10 BTC into ETH at the top, you would be left with 1 BTC at the bottom there, right? Whereas this time around, if you put in 10 BTC at the top of the ETH BTC ratio, you would be left with like 7 or 8 BTC still. So when you look at it like that, you can see that the downside has been incredibly muted for ETH BTC up until now. Now, that's not to say that it can't fall further from here, but it has just been so resilient for the entire bear market and crab market. ETH even bottomed first against USD in June of last year, whereas BTC didn't bottom till November of last year. So I think all of these kind of dynamics that Teshu is talking about here apply against BTC in the bear market, and then apply equally against USD in the bull market. So I'm just very, very excited to see, and also obviously apply against BTC in the bull market as well. But I'm just very excited to see just how explosive this can get, because there really isn't much ETH out there to buy. There is such a strong narrative for ETH as an asset. You know, the store of value, global settlement layer, deflationary, yield. TradFi loves yield. If we get an ETH ETF, that's gonna be a staking ETF. They're gonna love it, right? And I think that all of that together just creates such a amazing kind of demand kind of cycle for ETH, and amazing tailwinds for ETH. But I struggle to be bearish here, especially given that we're currently in this kind of accumulation range, I'd like to call it, right? Even though we came down a bit. Mike, I've always said that the accumulation range seems to be between $1,000 and $2,000. It could even be tightening between, like, I don't know, 1,400 and 2,000 or something like that. But generally, I've just been DCAing in. And, you know, I don't give investment or financial advice, but generally, if you're going to be buying things, I don't know, I feel like DCA is like the best strategy in buying and selling, just to prevent you from making rash decisions or trying to catch the top or bottom or anything like that. So yeah, a little bit of a bullish rant for you guys there. All right, moving on to some tech stuff. So ETHGlobal has announced the top 10 Superhack finalists. Now, Superhack was that hackathon, I think it was an all-online hackathon that I spoke about, I think a few weeks ago on the Refuel here. This was focused on layer 2, cross-chain, all that good stuff there. There are a bunch of projects in the top 10 here that you can go check out, which I'll link in the YouTube description below. I don't really have a favorite, to be honest. I haven't looked at all of them that closely yet to have a favorite, but there have been a few interesting ones here that I highly recommend checking out. And I think the winner may have been announced, and maybe I missed the tweet on the actual winner here. Maybe it's on the ETHGlobal page. I'm just quickly looking at the ETHGlobal page. No, I can't see it right now, but yeah. Oh wait, no, here's the winners here. So there was winners per category. So like best infra, best interchain app and stuff. So you can go view that tweet as well. I'll link that. Oh no, this was from Hyperlane. This wasn't the ETHGlobal winners. This was from Hyperlane's category winners. Yeah, I'll link that in the YouTube description as well, because it might be able to give you a better idea of what projects to kind of look into and pay attention to. But yeah, congrats to all the finalists here. All right, so there were two tweets that were referencing something that I was talking a lot about on the Bankless live stream I did with David Hoffman the other day. There's this kind of framework that I came up with, and someone actually put a tweet together here, Jabs, calling it the SET framework. So SET being an acronym for social, economic, and tech. And Next Alpha here described this in a tweet where he said, imagine being in crypto in 2023 and not getting that Ethereum is the best combination of the S, which is the social layer, such as things as like community, values, execution, the economic layer, which is the E, an efficient monetary policy for economic security, and the tech layer, which is the T, for the modular kind of roadmap approach and the modular Ethereum approach here. And then Jabs, of course, expanded on all of this in his Twitter thread, which I'll link these in the YouTube description below for you to check out. But the TLDR of what I was basically saying on Bankless, and I guess what I say generally, is that each crypto ecosystem has something that they over-indexed on at the start, right? And they started off at one kind of points here. They started either social, heavy on the social layer, heavy on the economic layer, and heavy on the tech layer. And the examples that I use is that Ethereum started really from the social layer side of things. It was very idealistic. There were a lot of people in Ethereum for ideological reasons. They didn't care about money, and the tech was secondary, right? They didn't care about the economics of the chain or anything like that. It was all secondary. But then over time, Ethereum evolved. We fixed the monetary policy, so we started caring more about economic. And the tech layer, we also fixed with the layer 2 roadmap, where you can basically build anything you want at layer 2. And that's the modular roadmap here as well there. So, and then I said at the end of my discussion with David that I believe Ethereum is the thing that actually hits on all three of these layers right now in maybe not equal capacity, but as close to equal as you can get out of all the ecosystems. And then I used an example of something that over-indexed on the monetary side of things, and that was Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin started off with a pretty ideological social layer as well, but then it very quickly transitioned to being all about the monetary side of things. It was all about the Bitcoin monetary policy, keeping that intact, and really the social layer became all about that. So the monetary policy and the economic layer actually dictated the social layer, and then of course it dictated the tech layer, because no one that was in it for the monetary stuff wanted to change the tech, because they wanted it to be as secure as possible, and they didn't want a hard fork and all that sort of stuff. So Bitcoin really has just completely over-indexed on the monetary side of things. Their social layer, in my mind, is weak. It's not great, and the tech layer is basically non-existent with Bitcoin. And then I use the other layer ones out there, the monolithic layer ones, as something that over-indexed from the start on the tech layer and forgot about the social layer, didn't even focus on that, and didn't focus on the monetary or economic layer either, right? So, and that's true for pretty much all the monolithic layer ones, I believe. They all were like, okay, we have cheaper gas fees, we're more scalable. You can write smart contracts in things other than Solidity, all that sorts of stuff. And that was their claim to fame. And then I ended the kind of discussion with David by saying that the things can evolve over time, but if you start from a strong social layer base, it's much easier to evolve into a strong economic layer and a strong tech layer than if you were to start from like a tech layer and then try to build a social layer up, because these things dictate each other. Because the social layer of the monolithic L1s are all dictated by the tech layer, right? It's not the other way around. Whereas Ethereum's monetary policy and tech layer, or economic layer and tech layer, were dictated by the social layer first. So I believe that you need to start with a strong social layer first, a strong social fabric, a strong community, strong values, and then you get everything else. So that was my whole view of things. But yeah, you can go check out that tweet and also check out Jabs' tweet, breaking all of this down. This is a framework that I'm going to be using a lot going forward, because I've talked about it a lot on the Refuel in the past and in bits and pieces. You guys know this is something that I'm very passionate about, especially when it comes to the social layer side of things, but I never really contextualized it and put it within a framework. I didn't even call it the set framework. That was Jabs' creation here, so kudos to him for that. But this is a framework that I'm going to be using going forward, because I believe that all of crypto falls into these three categories, and all the crypto ecosystems fall into these three categories. And Jabs' kind of picture here of the circles encompassing each other. The social encompasses the economic, which encompasses the tech, right? I think that's an accurate way of showing it as well. So yeah, just big kudos to these two guys, Next Alpha and Jabs, for listening to that live stream and then putting the idea out into the world, because at the end of the day, it really is just an idea, and it's really something that I want more people to kind of iterate on and more people to talk about, because it's something that I really believe in, and I think that it can be a good way of getting people's points across when they're talking about these different layers that exist within crypto ecosystems. All right, finally here, the recording from the meetup that I attended in Melbourne last week is now live. There are timestamps on it as well, so if you just want to check out my chat at that meetup, you can. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. It's basically, I think I went for like half an hour, so it's basically a Daily Gwei Refuel episode in of itself, and it's actually pretty easy to listen to, because the sounds pretty good and everything. So yeah, you can go check that out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. And just a big thank you to the Aus DeFi Association for having me there. I had a lot of fun, as I mentioned the other day. But yeah, I think on that note, that's going to be it for today. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.